to RSA 91-A compliance, Councilor Mattow.
Thank you. So I think it was the second month I was on the council. I brought this up for a brief discussion about minutes, and I'll just read the excerpt here. It said, minutes are a permanent part of the body's record and must be written and open to public inspection not more than 5 business days after the meeting. There are no exceptions to this requirement for the minutes of open meetings. Draft minutes can be used to satisfy this requirement until the final minutes are completed and accepted, but they must be clearly marked as draft. So, again, we've been discussing this for many months, and I know that the city manager has been working on it, but it's a law that I feel we need to comply with. Now, granted, it doesn't go further and say you have to post them on the website. However, if they're available within 5 business days, then I see no reason why we should not put them on the website rather than make people have to go and dig them out if they're interested in looking at the minutes. I mean, this is part of transparency and the right to know law, and the citizens should be able to have access to this information in accordance with the law. So I would recommend that we maybe consider a motion to direct the city manager within 60 days to come into compliance and start posting all the board meetings on the website within 5 business days, as well as any video that may be available with the minutes on there. And I do realize how difficult and time-consuming minutes can be. I did it for like 8 years when I worked with the city with all the boards, and I did it for like 10 years with the school board. So I'm very aware of how time-consuming minutes can be to get done. This change wouldn't make them any more time-consuming. It would just change the priority of when they get accomplished. But I think it's important that we comply with this, and I want to commend Dore and DeForest both. They do a great job with the minutes, but I just think it's time we formalize this.
Thoughts? Councilor Kowalski? Mr. Morris? You're on mute, Councilor Kowalski.
Sorry, I'm in agreement, but I have another question as far as 91A goes. There are, just this week alone, there were emails not back and forth between councilors, but council questions to the manager, and then the responses, as we've requested, go out to the entire body. But those are not public unless somebody was aware of them and asked for them. And I would like to see a way that we're able to change that those are listed somewhere. Maybe there's a separate link on our council page that is council questions and responses. I think that a lot of it was answered. So this week we received information about zoning board. We received information about pickup trucks or DPW bids. We received information. I had some questions on that. I had some questions about the transfer station. I had other budget questions. Besides coming to the meeting and then wasting everybody else's time that already has the answer, of me asking those questions redundant now to get the manager to state all of his answers, I think it would save members of the public having to submit 91A requests and tie up city staff time because they're already answered. I think council received a request about some finance information from a citizen that's going in as a 91A. But those were already answered to Councilor Gerard and to the rest of the body, I believe. So I'd like to find a way to be a little more transparent.
Councilor Mattow, Councilor Sweetser, and then Mr. Morris.
Perhaps there can be one more address added to when you respond to the board. Then that address could be a link to the website that just says answers to questions by councilors and citizens, so that if a citizen wants to go out and look at what some of the answers to some of these questions are, they can just go on there and link it and read what our answers have been. And you're right, avoid 91A requests unnecessarily.
Okay, Counselor Sweetser, I believe, then Mr. Morris.
I think it's naive to think that if a counselor asks the city manager a question and he gives him us an answer, and that is posted, that will deter the chronic requests for information. I don't think it's going to save us anything.
Mr. Morris?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to say. It may stop a couple or alleviate a couple right to know requests, but it's gonna take a tremendous amount of staff time to do that. Probably to the point that we would need another staff member to post everything. Just the draft minutes up and then down, and then new minutes up and down. It's going to add hours of staff work, and then if we're looking at doing questions as well, it's going to be multiple hours of time every week to try to do that.
Counselor Sweetser, Counselor Hearn, and then Counselor Mattow.
The issue of bringing up the time of it. Sometimes I send an email, Mr. Morris will answer me 2 days later. I do a little research. A week later, I ask him another question on the same thread because it pertains to the same thing. So what do you want staff doing? Adding to this email thread every single time there is an email, or do you want to wait until this thread of the topic is closed? And then what happens when a month later I'm like, oh, I remember I was asking about this, so I'll just reply to that email with my next question. I mean, I don't see why we're trying to make more work when it isn't legally required.
And then Counselor Mattow and Counselor Kowalski.
I think she said my name.
Yes. I'm sorry.
So I will agree with Council Matto. As you know, I have no problem with the 5 business days of the draft minutes being published. As far as the emails, I think this needs a little more discussion, and maybe the city manager might want to, before we get into the weeds, check and see what other major communities are doing, possibly in regards to this. I can't believe this is the first time this has come up, and see what they're doing to handle it and come back to us with some more information, and then we can make a determination from there.
Counselor Mattow?
So, to answer Counselor Switcher's comment about why we'd be doing something if it's not legally required, I'm assuming she's talking about posting the draft minutes within 5 days.
No.
She's not.
That's not what you're talking about. You were talking about the email thread.
Yes, just that.
Okay. So we've got 2 different topics here. But I believe that the city manager talked about if we had to post those within 5 days, the draft, and then replace them with the final minutes, that we'd have to hire another person. The reason I think that's important to do is for transparency's sake. And if we are going to comply with the law, which I don't think we have a choice, and have them ready within 5 days, but don't post them to the web, that to me is like telling the public that we don't care whether you know or not, and if you want to know, you've got to jump through all these hoops, which to me is going to make more work for the staff if they have to constantly be supplying people with the draft minutes once they know they're ready within 5 days. I would like to be able to look at other boards and committees' minutes within 5 days on the website. I don't want to have to bother the staff for that. So I don't think we have a choice but to comply with having the minutes ready within 5 business days. And if they're ready, I think it's ridiculous for us not to put them on the website for the public to have access to. We're a public body. We should be transparent to the public. We work for the public, and I don't think it's going to cost or take that much more staff time to post the minutes within 5 days, or post them 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later. Or some of these boards haven't had minutes posted in months.
Counselor Kowalski, then Assistant Mayor. I'm sorry, Mr. Morris, did I skip you at some point?
No, I'd like to reply to that if possible.
Okay, then if you could, and then Counselor Kowalski and Assistant Mayor Dameron.
I wasn't necessarily speaking about just doing the draft minutes would do that. If we were doing emails and draft minutes, and it would be hours and hours and hours of time. The draft minutes will take more time, and we are an extremely stressed staff at now. I'm not saying we can't do that, but we need to talk about how we're going to do that and how we can do it in a way that minimizes staff time.
Councilor Kowalski, then Assistant Mayor Dameron.
So to answer the question, why would be more transparent with our email communications? I think it's about being a better, more transparent body. I often hear in the community, and even why I put my name in the hat to run for council. I used to watch meetings at home and ask, yelling at the TV, why are you not asking that question? I felt like the elected body just sat here, nodded their head, and rubber stamped everything. Meanwhile, right now, we have information the public doesn't. We've got bid information. We've got a ton of information. This past week alone, I only have Councilor Gerard's, my questions, and I haven't seen any other councilor. So maybe it's just us this week. I don't know. But I think the mayor had a good suggestion. When the replies go out, there's a link to the website, and I don't know. I mean, there really is a better way, and I'm getting the same questions from constituents that have already been asked, and then there are several that watch the meeting that will ask the same question. And I don't know. It's just about being user friendly.
Mr. Mayor Dameron.
Thank you. I'm very much opposed to doing or taking that step with emails. I think our city staff and people have enough to be doing. Why don't we try being on time and on schedule with RSA 91? It's apparent from looking at some of the data that there are committees that are not. So we've got a lot of work to clean up. The issue of draft minutes, I believe there's a document in what you sent out, Councilor Mattow, that specifies that you aren't going to destroy the draft minutes. If you post them online, I think you keep them online, supplemented. You'd obviously post them in draft minutes, such and such a date, but you also then post the final minutes and you identify them as such. The point that was made in somebody's writing that you sent out was a citizen somewhere or a board member or whomever, in all innocence, is going to ask for the minutes of the meeting at 5 days or on day number 6. They're going to get the draft minutes, and you send them away on their merry way, and 2 weeks later you finalize minutes. And what happens if they're different? You've now sent a citizen away with a draft, and they have no ability to see what the final version is. So why don't we try to be good stewards first with 91A? Let's see where we go there. But I'm really opposed to the idea of trying to make some sort of a table or a database or what have you with emails. I think we can be chasing ourselves.
Councilor Switzer, then Mr. Morris.
I'm sitting here and I'm running scenarios through my head, and I'm actually thinking that it might be actually dangerous to do this. Let's just say, for example, we have one topic, we have a council meeting. There's 10 topics we're going to be talking about. So I send Mr. Morris 10 questions, and they're all about 10 different topics. What gets posted on the website? My entire email and his response, so it's like a conversation thread. Or do we expect the city staff to keep track of who emailed what, when, for what topic? And then do we expect the city staff to pull out question number 9 that pertains to such and such topic and organize it that way on the city website? And then does the city website say, these are all the questions the councilors asked about such and such topic, but 2 months later somebody files a request for information and finds an email that wasn't included, even though the website says these were all the questions? I mean, are we in trouble then? I think it's just, it's I don't like it.
Mr. Morris, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point while we're talking about this that, pretty much the majority, most all of our boards do a very good job at getting those minutes in, and DeForest does a very good job at making sure that they are in. We have a few that slip through the cracks every now and then. I believe the minutes are written, but we just are tracking them down. But I just wanted to make the point that, you know, the majority of these boards are working very hard and working and doing a great job taking minutes and getting them there. So whatever the council's decision is, we will work on, but I just wanted to make that point.
Councilor Ahern and then Councilor Matto.
I think that for the most part, I think all of us may be in agreement with the draft minutes. And as far as the emails, I think that's for another night discussion, because we can get, one, we're getting into the weeds, and two, nobody's even brought up about boards and committees having email discussions that could potentially be the same subject. So I think we should just move this email discussion to another night and just finalize this 91 draft minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree. Councilor Matto, then Councilor Kowalski.
I was basically going to say the same thing, that we need to just stop the discussion about the email, because clearly it's there's a lot of things that we need to deal with on it, and it's a discussion for another time. So I would just like us to consider giving a directive and a deadline of 60 days to come into compliance with 91A, and to further have them posted on the website as draft minutes within that 5 business day window.
Okay, Councilor Kowalski, you have one question.
So, my last piece on this topic. All of your emails are subject to 91A. So we're acting like it's a mystery how none of them should be missed. And I don't understand the mystery of finding all of those emails and putting them in one location, because it's all public information.
Mr. Councilor Kowalski, you've already said all of this. I'm not trying to be rude.
I'm
but
countering a point that was made by Councilor Sweetser. It's all, and I haven't been seeing other councilors email questions, so that brings up another issue to me tonight. So I'd like to make sure that all responses that councilors are getting, that the rest of this body is, because so far I don't think I've seen anything from the majority of the council.
Okay, again, we're going to focus on, I believe the majority of the council wants to just focus on what Councilor Matto had brought before us this evening. And she requested that we come into compliance within 60 days. The city manager do that. The only thing I would like to add to that is, if it's not possible to come into compliance for 60 days, I think I would be interested in hearing back why it was so difficult, because maybe there's a process problem that we have in coming into compliance with 91A. Beyond that, Councilor Ahern?
Maybe within 30 days gives us an update of the progress. I mean, a brief update, so we know where we stand. Maybe if 60 days isn't going to be it, we can extend it, but I would, I don't want to, I was just what, we give him the time that he needs, but, the sooner the better.
Okay, so how about we go along with that and come into compliance with 60 days with a 30-day update. At that point in time, perhaps at the 30-day update, Mr. Morris, if you are running into problems, it would be interesting to hear what they are, because maybe there's something else we may need to implement. I don't know. Does that agree with everybody?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Except Mr. Morris.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for preparing the document, Councilor Matto. Good to see. Next is committee